Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Mariology here, still just a lonely wail of despair away from being completely black-pilled. And this is why I am an anti-feminist, part 1. I've been doing this blogosphere dance, this YouTubistan waltz and BitChute tango of mine for round and about a year now. And never once, I believe, have I addressed in simple terms why I bitch and moan about feminism as much as I do. Particularly so since the issues facing men, which are supposed to be my main concern, do in fact stem from things besides feminism. Often things that are biological in nature and reinforced by culture. More likely than not, it would be somewhat easier to address issues affecting men in society without declaring war on feminism. It would make for less attacks along the lines of "you just hate women" or similar silly statements which are as ridiculous as they are absurd. I doubt it though. The preposterous claims of misogyny would come whether one mentioned feminism or not. For the simple reason that trying to make this society of ours realize that men also struggle somehow takes away from women. Feminism is playing a zero-sum game, where only their voice shall be heard. All must go towards women. Nothing need go towards men. You see, within the coprophilia that is feminism and the way feminism attacks anyone who opposes it lies the answer to my anti-feminism. And I must admit that I have lied to you. I cannot possibly address this in simple terms. You will have to be subject to my cruel and unusual rambling yet again. Feminism is an ism first and foremost. In my eyes and murky mischievous mind, this alone is enough to raise some alarms. An ism is a set of ideas and beliefs, an umbrella under whose limited roof one seeks shelter from the rain. Stray but a little beyond its clearly defined borders, and one cannot help but get rained on. Feminism, as an ism, is incredibly totalitarian and tyrannical in its approach. It does not only propose to speak on behalf of all women, no. It also proposes to have a monopoly on the concept of all things equality. It is not enough to hold the belief that the sexes should be treated equally. You also have to refer to yourself as a feminist. Otherwise, you cannot possibly be for equality, according to their flightless feminist fancy. It is incredibly important for feminism that one wears the label of feminist. Were it a movement only for equality, surely it would be enough to state that one believes that the sexes should be treated equally. This is not the case. Feminism demands you wear the label of feminist, to such an extent that they will ignore someone's wish to not be labelled as such with the wonderful fuckery that is, "Oh, so you believe in equality between the genders? Congratulations, you are a feminist." Or, of course, claim that you are either a feminist or a sexist. There is no in-between, nothing but either or. Strange thing to come from a movement that proposes to be nuanced. This is terrifying. No matter which movement, which ism, which anything. But okay, fair enough, I'll play. If you are a feminist, you are a sexist. It should be enough to frighten people away from feminism to look at how they attack anyone who dares disagree with their infected and ready to be cut away concept of equality, which is not equality of opportunity, but equality of outcome, painting them as haters of women, foul basement-dwelling misogynists who just want to maintain the power men have over women in society. Which is odd, of course, considering the fact that the basement-dwelling bozo bogeymen of their patriarchal conspiracy theory cannot possibly wield any manner of influence and power on account of being basement-dwelling bozos with no power and no influence. Which is the claim of the feminist hive mind, of course, when meeting any opposition. Either that, or shame for lack of sexual prowess and success with women, as if the most important value a man has is whether or not he is attractive to women. From the mouth and rotting brain of feminism comes the truth. I would dare argue, as I have done many times before, that any movement that claims to hold a monopoly, that claims to be the only voice to speak on a certain topic, is one not to be trusted. Especially not one to be trusted on to speak on that certain topic. Doubtlessly so when riding under the banner of an ism. And I don't care whether this be an ism I tend to agree with or not. Nothing and no one should be believed when claiming to be the only one to speak on this or that or tit or tat. Everything can and must be questioned. This goes for my own convictions as well. See, as critical as I am of feminism and the ideas of feminism, I am even more critical of my own ideas. Which is one of the reasons why I tend to avoid writing on recent news and such. I go through an excruciating amount of self-doubt and hesitation before putting thoughts to digital paper, to see if they hold up. Usually they do. One of my greatest character flaws, as well as one of my greatest character strengths, I think, is my excruciating self-doubt. Of course, I am just a nobody on the internet, merely a drink or two, that is, some slightly lowered cognitive abilities away from becoming a good old-fashioned anarchist. I am not a massive movement with fat chunky butts placed in seats of immense power and influence such as feminism undoubtedly is. And within the broader men's rights movement, or the manosphere, or whatever you want to call it, I am absolutely nothing but a tiny voice whispering into the broken algorithm of the Google god. With this in mind, I think it is only fair that a movement of such magnitude as feminism should be scrutinized more than any one individual sucker on the interwebs. For it is the movement I am attacking, not individual members and hangers-on to that movement. With a few exceptions to this rule, as there always are. The movement is not understood properly by society at large. This is due to feminism worming its way into the minds and thoughts and zeitgeist of our cultures as the only force fighting for equality between the sexes, and so any opposition to this must mean opposition to equality between the sexes. This is, at best, dishonest. Mostly, it is just lies, social engineering, and brainwashing. It seems that most everyone refers to themselves as feminist by default, for simple reasons. This is what the term equality has come to mean in the heads and minds of the populace who don't have the time or the interest to delve beneath the surface. Feminism. And the obvious hatred of anyone male, anything masculine, is brushed away as just the ravings of a radical few, not a picture of the movement as a whole. And the obvious push for female supremacy, the obvious rhetoric that states quite clearly that women are not only better than men at doing anything, but women are also superior to men in morality and in understanding and dealing with emotions, as well as everything else that goes on within, is brushed away with a flick of the wrist and a laughter that it is just building up girls after girls having been thrown under the bus for so long. In order for the sexes to be treated equally, girls and women must be treated far better than boys and men. This is, obvious, I suppose, to those who believe that preferential treatment equals equal treatment, or who are daft enough to believe that revenge for perceived prior oppression done by none alive today and likewise suffered by none alive today is equality made manifest in goose flesh. For equality, boys and men must suffer what imagined hardships girls and women suffered in the past. It is the sins of the father for which the son must pay, 7 generations down the line. Revenge is equality, you see, not pettiness and stupidity. Feminism has got to be the only movement in the world where the thought leaders, the founders of the movement, the ones that write the books, who changed the laws to be anything but equal, who found gender studies courses, who wield the power of the movement, are said to be not true feminists. It has got to be the only movement in the world in which the ones that made the movement what it is are not true adherents to its movement. Take the term "the future is female," for example. This comes from Sally Miller Gerhardt. She co-founded women's and gender courses on universities, which are still taught today. She wrote about reducing and maintaining men to about 10% of the population, which is where the term originates. The future, if there is one, is female. This term is printed on t-shirts and proudly worn by those who have drunk the sacred period blood and eaten the vaginal yeast communal wafer of feminism. And everyone else who believe that girls and women need a leg up, a handout and a pedestal on which to stand because, in being equal, girls are better than boys and women are better than men. With this knowledge, that the future is female has its origins in a fantasy of reducing and maintaining men to about 10% of the population. Would it be inappropriate for me to assume everyone wearing this shirt to hold similar sentiments? If not, why not? If I wore a t-shirt with a quote from Mein Kampf taken out of context for simply enjoying that quote, would that fly? Would it be okay for me to state that Hitlerism is not true Nazism, that the figurehead of the movement had it all wrong and was not a true Nazi? Or would people pelt me with rotten fruits and throw me into the glorious fjords of Norway, to either drift away or drown? Oddly enough, I believe that wearing a t-shirt stating that the future is male would visit worse worries upon my head than any random quote from Adolf Hitler. That would be hating on women, you see, and that is the worst crime one could possibly commit. Far worse than killing men for the crime of being men, you must understand. And lo and behold how the herp does derp, how wondrous is this magnificent herping of the derp. Should I not be allowed some manner of indignation that a term whose origins lie in wanting to reduce men to 10% of the population, gendercide in a word, is as marketable and loved as it is? Should I not consider it a bit weird that the thought leaders of a movement are said to not be true to the movement? All par for the course in the double-think stink of the feminist hive mind. All hatred is justified, downplayed and forgotten. The worst I have ever heard in regards to the men must be reduced thingamajigger is that she was either not a real feminist or she just had a very bad day. Wow, I am stunned. That is downplaying it some now. When I have a bad day, I am a bit grumpy and complain about my grumpiness on Twitter with a biting self-deprecation in regards to my chronic pain. I do not propose we reduce women to 10% of the population. But, in the feminist utopia, women are never held to account for what they do. In particular feminist women. Even when they are not true feminist women and so should be open to attack by the real feminist women. And look how the derpy herpy derps through the meadow and the fields. How it derps in the herpy depths of the herp derp scream. If one believes in the history delivered by feminist revisionist historians, which looks at how women were supposedly treated in society's past, neglecting of course to look at how men were treated, it is easy to believe that women were terribly oppressed. However, it is never as black and white as feminism pretends. Women were protected, and men were sacrificed, and still are. That is about as simple as I can put it, as black and white as I myself can put it. Of course, fighting fire with fire is stupid, and fighting black and white imagery with black and white imagery gives us nothing but a fuzzy black and white picture. You see, in the dismal cosmic dance of society, for every perceived privilege men had, there were also responsibilities and sacrifices attached. And for every perceived oppression women suffered, there were also privileges and protection attached. The relationship between the sexes have always been a complex and difficult dance. Neither black nor white nor black and white for either. Suffice it to say that the past was hard for everyone but the elite, but the aristocracy, man and woman alike. Looking only at how one side suffered does not give the whole picture. Yet, that is what is done. Just as it is done now. We look only to how women are doing, and label this equal treatment. We care only for the plight of women, neglecting the plight of men, and we refer to this as equality. Not only women suffer. Men also suffer, and that is how it has always been. Both sexes experience difficulties within society and within culture that is exclusive to them. Helping one at the cost of neglecting the other, as feminism does, is contrary to treating the sexes equally. Completely and utterly contrary, in fact. For a movement that is supposedly about making the sexes be treated equally, it is damned good at refusing to treat the sexes equally. I would posit that the world would do better with a human rights movement than one exclusively for men and one exclusively for women. Were it not for feminism, I would not wear the label of a men's rights activist. I would, more like than not, wear the label of a human rights activist. That is, if I have to wear these fucking labels at all. See, the older I get, the more I believe that all these labels, all these this, that and the others are nothing but a ridiculously overcomplicated tangled mess of words and wires that only confuse and complicate everything far more than is necessary. But I digress. Feminism refuses to view men as complete and complex human beings, evidenced by their hand-waving away of the various severe issues that our side, that is the manosphere or whatever, bring up. Smearing and ad hominem attacks is about all they have when faced with the arguments delivered from the men's rights movement. Included in this is of course the incredibly stupid and obvious to anyone with half a brain cell attempt of theirs to smear it as a white supremacist movement. That is the weirdest one. Misogynist? Okay, it's not true in the least, but at the very least it is somewhat related to the topic at hand. White supremacism, on the other hand, that is so obviously bullshit that I am amazed they get away with it. But, you know, women are wonderful and all that. Of course, feminism does not care much for women either. It cares only for feminism, evidenced by how feminism treats women that do not wear the label of feminist, how they treat women that behave in a manner not accepted by the feminist hive mind. They are gender traitors and must be burned at the stake and have their heads put on pikes as a warning to other women that they must toe the party line, lest the same fate should befall them. Online bullying and harassment is only an issue when it is a feminist that falls victim to it. It is not a problem when it is multiple feminist goons that perpetrate it, targeting a non-feminist traitor. This is the glorious effects of their othering of any and all that do not bend the knee and swear fealty to their cause. And feminism, for all its portrayals of itself as some sort of underdog fighting the power, is not the underdog but the power. They are the establishment. Of course, it wins popular vote merely by its portrayal as an underdog, because who does not love an underdog? The top dog, that is who. And in portraying men in the guise of the doubtfully existent patriarchy as the top dog, they have done two things and more. One, they have painted and portrayed themselves as the underdog fighting the top dog. 2. They have created a wonderful excuse for their shaming and hatred of men and all things masculine, hiding every instance of obvious hatred of men behind the curtain that, oh no, we are only talking about the patriarchy, and every critique necessarily must mean that the man critiquing is guilty of being the very man they complain about. Clever. For, the oppressed have every right to hate their oppressors, even if it does not make sense for the oppressors to allow the oppressed such amounts of power and influence as feminism has got in these topsy-turvy worlds of ours. This should be evident to anyone. Supposing that women are oppressed, how in the fuck are the oppressed allowed as much social influence as women as a group do indeed wield, and have wielded for some time? Why do the oppressors, as horrible as they apparently are, allow their subjects to spew their vile hatred with impunity? It does not make any sense. And for all their blubbering about dismantling gendered stereotypes, the feminist hive mind are not doing a good job at removing the stereotype of women as irrational, hysterical, overly emotional creatures with little to no capacity for reason and logic. To be clear, this is not my view of women. It is, however, my view of feminism as a movement. Well, part of my view of feminism as a movement. Supposing that feminism is fighting and are oppressed by the establishment, why then do powerful figures within the establishment, that is political, media, entertainment, you name it, pose with t-shirts proudly stating that this is what a feminist looks like? Were women so oppressed as feminism claims, a merely whispered accusation about foul misogyny and hatred of women would not be enough of a shutdown to derail any conversation onto the character of the man in question instead of the argument presented. Mumbling something about internalized misogyny would not be enough to shut down any woman who dares move beyond the confines of the umbrella that is feminism. Yet this is what happens, time and bloody time again. It is the worst case of the Chewbacca defense I have ever seen. It makes no sense. Yet it works, and more are in the works. It has been led to my attention that my ramblings tend to become a bit lengthy. Too lengthy, in fact. This, well, it is absolutely true. Thus I am doing this in several parts. Here endeth part 1. Join me next week, if the heathen gods of old are willing, for part 2. Thank you very much for watching. Here follows an outro most befitting a video of this nature, a blatant attempt at virtual panhandling. Should you wish to support this channel, as well as my blog and any further endeavours this strange path will take me on, there are a few ways you can do that. The easiest would be to like, share and subscribe, as well as clicking the sometimes functional notification bell. Having the message, such as it is, manspread and mansplained far and wide will do wonders. You could also support my rambling and barely contained insanity by buying my books, which are linked below. More books will be made available as time allows. I also have a Redbubble shop, linked below, where you can buy prints in various forms of some of the artwork presented in my videos. Or you can contact me through the contact form on my blog for original artwork, commissions or prints direct from the source, so to speak. Until next time, I am your humble bearded bard, Morea Legier, manspreading majestically beneath the steel sky of doom.